many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to get into some news here in a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to do was kind of start off with talking about independent media and these big tech companies like Google. And I personally have been, I don't know if you want to call it attacked by Google, other websites out there, and there's other hosts on this network that have had either warnings or, takedowns of ads, multiple things. And it seems to be happening to independent media, alternative media. And it's happening more and more to the point that they are making it extremely difficult for any independent media to be able to finance and grow itself by the means that these other companies are, and other smaller websites that just promote sports or look what Miley Cyrus did this week, but any actual journalism that's actually exposing truth and talking about subjects that Google disagrees with, or that might show America in a negative light, they are actively, it seems, attacking these people. Now, I've been trying to get through a interview that Glenn Beck had with the executives at Google. And I haven't been able to get to a spot that I wanted to play it from. I might play part of this here, and it's about their response to things, how they can basically, in their own terms, they say a little different, but basically censor. That way, we won't have violence. We don't want violence to be spread using our tools. Therefore, we could censor things that might spur violence. And, one thing that might spur violence is the truth when you have governments committing crimes. So that, in my viewpoint, how they were speaking, that they believe they have the right to censor the truth about government crimes so that it wouldn't spur any violence. As in, protests and riots, or, I really want to play. I might still play a little bit of this interview that Glenn Beck had with it was Eric Schmidt and Jared Cohen. But there's another clip I want to play, and it's from We Are Changing. It's talking about this, and Luke Rudowski actually interviewed Nick Burnaby of the Anti-Media, which has broadcast here on UCY.tv, and Jason Baszler of the Free Thought Project. And they talk about this subject a little bit, so I wanted to play this and kind of get into the topic here. So let me cue this up.
This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org here at the Free Your Mind Conference here in Pennsylvania, New York, and I am joined by Jason Baszler of the Free Thought Project and Nick Burley of the Anti-Media, both successful independent media organizations, and we're going to be talking about a lot of important things with the censorship that's happening and also possible solutions. Now, Nick, first of all, we all go through a lot of incredible kind of censorship, a lot of things behind the scenes that people do not know about. We faced it very severely here at We Are Change with YouTube, Google, and AdSense just screwing us over. What have you been dealing with, and what do you think is the latest kind of news with censorship and independent free media?
Well, man, it's like here with the independent media, in many ways we're challenging the status quo. We're challenging corporate America. We're challenging the government. And many of these companies, unfortunately, like Google, the hugest internet company in the world, they kind of have a monopoly over advertising. They have a monopoly over the search engines and all that stuff. And so they can really use that to manipulate what people are able to see and how people are able to make a living from this media movement. And we're seeing that come to a head lately. I know you guys at We Are Change have been dealing with it on your YouTube channel. Keep in mind, Google owns YouTube as well. Antiwar.com has been dealing with it as far as Google pulling down all their ads because they were talking about Abu Ghraib. But we deal with this in the alternative media because we're challenging this system. And Google is a huge part of the government. I mean, they've got executives that work in economic development things within the Obama administration and stuff like that. So whenever people try to challenge this status quo, they may or may not face retaliation via censorship from companies like Google or Facebook or Yahoo that have a really heavy hand in this industry. And so that's one thing that I think people need to start understanding about what we're doing, is that there's a lot of forces against us. And, we're talking about little companies. I mean, I don't know how many employees you guys have, but we have maybe 10 people, 15 people working with us. And we have very little resources, and we're kind of just working from the cuff. We're talking about billion-dollar industries that are heavily connected into the government. And whenever we start making waves into undermining that system, because in many ways that system is oppressive, they do what they can to shut down the message, and they try to kill the messenger. And that's what's been happening with many of these websites, whether we talk about antiwar.com, Mint Press News, on the Anti-Media. We're on our last warning from Google, because our last one came from an article we did on Abu Ghraib. Abu Ghraib is where the U.S. government was torturing people in Iraq. And we cover this story because this is the news that people need to see. But then Google says, hey, you can't cover this news because it shows bad things happening. It's like, this is the stuff that we need people to see. If we're censoring that, then we're not letting the truth get out there, And that's the biggest problem to me, is that these companies, whether it's economically trying to take away the monetization of our websites, of our organizations, they're censoring us. And it's in a subvertive way. They're not coming and just saying, oh, we're shutting down your website, but they're just doing it in a way where it's like, oh, you just violated our policies. We're indirectly having to censor you. It's a huge problem, man. It's a huge problem.
Yeah. It used to be, don't be evil, Google's model. Now it's like, don't show evil. Now they have over, so many different lobbyists over there on K Street in Washington, totally working with the government. Now, Jason, how has your news organization, I mean, you guys with the Free Thought Project have been doing a lot of incredible work. Have you guys been affected by the censorship as well? And what's your status?
Sure, absolutely. Facebook has particularly targeted us over a lot of different arbitrary posts, which don't necessarily violate terms of contract, but one way or another, they're pulling down our posts, which obviously hurt our traffic income. And so more or less, it's been a huge issue with us. I think I've been banned 3 30-day bans within 2 months, with different accounts, obviously. But it's certainly been affecting our progress and our flow of work. So it's become more of a problem over the past.
See, we were talking yesterday, and I remember, whenever I made a Facebook post, bam, viral, 50, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000, one post I even made before got, 18 million views. It's just like, bam, viral, hit. And now it's like, hit, wait, smaller hit. Maybe you get lucky in a hit. And then also we have the fact that Facebook, we actually had a page with over, 500,000 likes. They sold our page without even notification, without even saying anything, to Time Warner. And Time Warner bought our page, that was a fan page of Jesse Ventura's, 500,000 people, without even notifying us. So you could just see, Time Warner Cable, all these big corporations kind of engulfing and trying to suppress the free speech, the kind of evil that we're trying to expose, because we're ultimately kind of exposing them. Now, when we're doing that, we were kind of talking about solutions. Nick, you were just talking about some as well. Where do you think we should go from all these problems that we are facing?
Well, I think it's really important to start working on building alternative networks, decentralized networks. The internet is such a huge, diverse place, but unfortunately, it's in many ways controlled by very few corporations. Whether we're talking about the internet service providers like Verizon, Time Warner, or whether we're talking about the traffic providers like Google and Facebook, things like that.
These are the new gatekeepers.
Yeah, they really are. And the whole thing, and we're talking about this about censorship and stuff. The whole reason why we have freedom of speech is to protect controversial speech, right? And it's to protect us to say things that are uncomfortable. And unfortunately, we've experienced when we say uncomfortable things, when we present information that's uncomfortable, like people being tortured by the U.S. government, that stuff ends up being censored. So what we need to do, I think, is, for one, start working on decentralized internet systems, finding alternatives to internet service providers. I think that's the biggest, most important thing we can do. The other thing I think that would be really, really big is figuring out ways to build alternative advertising networks. Most of us rely on Google to monetize our content, which is what we use to pay our journalists.
This is the wonder of our planet. We make TV with what it gives us.
Pay our rents and to operate our computers and pay for our internet service. So we're relying on these companies like Google and Facebook. I think we need to start building new companies that are ideologically opposite to what Google and Facebook have become, which are these highly centralized corporations. We need to have decentralized ideas, kind of like what Bitcoin is, but for the internet, and to start building peer-to-peer internet systems, things like that, and then alternatives to advertising networks, alternatives to Google AdSense, alternatives to Yahoo Ads, and all that stuff. We need to find conscious companies that are ethically aligned with freedom to be willing to start funding this work so that we can all continue to push this movement forward, push this idea of freedom forward. It requires a lot of different facets. It requires a lot of different resources. And advertising is one thing that we're really lacking on. A lot of us know that Google is a horrible, evil company, but we still have to work with them because otherwise we won't be able to pay our journalists. So we need to figure out solutions to that. Anyone out there watching this, if you got any ideas, please contact us, because we want to figure out alternatives to advertising, and we want to help companies that are ethical companies that believe in the ideas of individual freedom and rolling back oppression. We want to work with these companies. We can help them. They can help us. I think that's one of the other big things that we need to work on is getting everybody together.
Touch on was that if we could create mutually beneficial relationships with writers and all different types of people within the social media movement, then we could help each other to maintain this kind of new journalistic approach to combating the mainstream media. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on as well, is that this is such a brand new technology. We're pioneers in social media. Everyone should be taking up this opportunity right now to be spreading the word. And if you're passionate about spreading this information, you're already halfway there. You're already kicking ass, and you're have the motivation to make sure that we're passing on this information that's valuable to each other. So that's one thing I would mention. And also just networking with each other. I mean, me and this guy networked with each other in the very beginning stages of the Anti-Media when it had around 2,000 likes on Facebook page. And we've helped each other in so many different ways, just networking and helping pass on information. So that's one thing I would suggest is trying to network as many people as you can. Obviously keeping it within certain parameters. You're not trying to reach out to too many, but
some things can be left unsaid. But I think cooperation, you're right. Cooperation is really important in this new movement. Of course, we have competing ideas sometimes and all that stuff, but I think cooperating together, because there's the elephant in the room is this oligarchy. It's not just the government, it's not just corporate, it's both. And we're opposed to that. So I think we should work together, even if we have opposing ideas sometimes, maybe varying philosophies and that kind of thing. It's important to cooperate in order to look at the bigger picture, which is rolling back the state, rolling back oppression, rolling back authoritarianism, is the broader project that we really need to work on. And whether you have a little website, whether you have a huge website, I think it's really important that we all network back together and like really come together to push all these ideas forward. And that's how we can take this thing to the next level.
You are the media. It's something that Luke from We Are Change always says. You are the media. So, take that into yourself, empower yourself, and share this information.
Many people say vote with your dollar. I say vote with your shares and your likes is just as important, because you are going around the systems that are trying to suppress the information. There's a reason subscribers to this channel are not getting the latest videos that are coming out here, because they don't want this. I could just imagine, I don't know if you guys get this image too, but I could just imagine Eric Schmidt just like sitting in his office and then just getting a phone call from like Obama being like, what the fuck are you doing? We're paying you, but you're allowing these people like Jason, people like Nick to make a living, people like Luke to make a living destroying us. We're supposed to be working together, but Eric, what are you doing? And I can see Eric just being like, all right, we'll change the algorithms. And that's what they did. I remember the main reason Loose Change was as popular as it was because Google had an algorithm for the top most viewed videos, and people were able to see this is the most popular video. YouTube had the same thing. Then they took it away, and now all their corporate buddies and their partnerships that they have are recommended videos for you. Same with the Facebook newsfeed. That's how they kind of decentralize everything. And all these changing algorithms are extremely, extremely confusing. And that's how they get you. And that's how they deny you access to information that you are subscribed to that you will not even see. I don't know if you guys have any other comments that you want to add to that.
Exactly, man. I mean, people go and they like pages, they subscribe to YouTube channels, and they expect to receive that information. But then, Facebook or YouTube decides like, well, those people just aren't going to receive that information anymore. And it really is a form of censorship. Indirectly, they blame it on their algorithm changes and all that stuff. But it really is, to me, a way of censoring truth, censoring these ideas that may be controversial or maybe undermining to the current paradigm of things. And that's why it's so scary to them, the prospect of like, oh, this one person with a cell phone took this one video of something happening, and it could undermine a huge part of the scheme that they're running against us. And that's why they're so scared, and that's why they want to put this overall, they want to throw it wide, cast a big net and really censor everybody that has any kind of information that would challenge the status quo, more or less.
Same thing, I would say, pay attention to the different platforms and what they could provide for the people. Facebook algorithms, once again, is a big part of it. If we could kind of narrow down exactly how they work and use that to our advantage, share that information with each other, once again, we're going to be benefiting this whole cause of liberty and truth. So.
And the conversation for the solution starts right here with the Free Thought Project, Anti-Media, We Are Change. If you have another news organization and you want to maybe collaborate or talk to us, definitely, let's build this. Let's build an alternative to what we're facing. If we all come together and put aside our differences, we could do it. And most importantly, don't forget, check out the Free Thought Project, the Anti-Media, and vote with your likes and your shares. Thank you again so much for watching. Subscribe.
We Are Change, wearechange.org, We Are Change on YouTube. Check them out. And again, that was Nick Burnaby from Anti-Media, which you can catch Anti-Media Radio here on UCY.tv. And that was Jason from Free Thought Project. So it's a very, very important topic that we actually discuss these things, because we do have these corporations like Google, and they're either, actually evil, or they are extremely naive, or they're just sellouts or pushovers. I don't know exactly. I think there's an arrogance to them and an ignorance to them, kind of that I know better than you. Okay, I want to play part of this interview that Glenn Beck did with Eric Schmidt and Jared Cohen. And I want you to hear how they talk about this, and how they see themselves as a monopoly, basically, storing all this information, and how it's okay, it's good, we do know evil, which I believe is completely BS, and I think that's where the arrogance plays in. But I want you to hear it for yourself and hear the responses. So I'm going to play just a short part of the interview here. I've skipped ahead quite a ways, and I'll stop it early. But I want to talk about the responses to some of these issues that Glenn Beck, out of all people, brought up. Surprisingly, he's been a very vocal person about Google and technology. But let's go ahead and play this real quick.
He talked a little bit about how, robots or, your computers are going to be able to talk to you and anticipate your needs, et cetera, et cetera. And he pointed to my iPad and he said, I said, how is that going to work? He said, you're going to listen. You'll listen to absolutely everything. They will know. They'll read your emails. They'll see what you're reading. And he said, it will service you. And I said, okay, that's great. Devil's advocate here, Ray. Let's say I wanted to create a good version of Ask Jeeves. How would Google, having that kind of power, be able to listen to me, see what I'm doing? Why wouldn't you just become the Lord of the Manor? So I'm doing my own kind of thinking, but you have access to all that I'm thinking and can be able to put it together and put...
Google does not have a connection inside of your brain, right?
But if you can anticipate talking with what Ray's working on, if you can anticipate...
We're not that good, maybe yet, maybe never, right? What we're very good at, if you look at the AI, is we're very good at looking at historical patterns and based on historical patterns suggesting things. But there's something about humans that people always forget, that technologists always forget. Humans are creative and unpredictable. They actually invent new things. Mm-hmm. New things happen that have never happened before.
Correct.
It's why we're human. Nothing's going to replace that, I think, in my life.
But I'm not necessarily saying that you are going to have the aha moment. Mm-hmm. But I would have to isolate myself from everything that you would have access to, or by the time I get to the patent office, you got it.
Well, in theory, the future would be able to say, Glenn, your idea is so clever, let me check and see if it's been patented, and then suggest that you file a patent. I mean, that's the kind of service you could imagine in the future. It'd be very useful.
Okay. Let me take a quick break, and then I want to come back, and I want to go back on the social robots, because I'm not as concerned with. In fact, I'm not concerned at all with technology. I'm concerned with mankind and the trends that we're already seeing, and add on top of that. And what is the responsibility of Google in all of that when we come back? So as I'm looking at the idea of social robots, and specifically you talked a little bit about people who have lost limbs. You'll be able to reconnect limbs or give them a robotic limb. And then through an fMRI, they'll be able to think and it will move, which is absolutely fantastic. And I thought, boy, how much can we replace? And over time, again, going back to Ray Kurzweil, he believes he will, he's taking all kinds of vitamins and everything else. He believes he just has to make it to about 2030 and he'll live forever. I happen to disagree on what life is.
We want him to be right.
Yeah. Let me start with this. How would you define life?
Well, I think we all understand that life is basically defined as consciousness. Right, that ultimately consciousness is the unique thing that humans have. So
if you can make a robot conscious, it's life?
Maybe not. We'll have to decide. But consciousness is more than an analytical process. It's more than a verbal process. It's something that is not understood. It's never been understood by philosophers, and scientists today cannot explain consciousness.
If Ray is right, because this is one of the things he's working on, if he's right, and you can download somebody, let's say a soldier on the battlefield, and he's still got it, but he's lost everything else, and you could download his essence and put it into a working machine, have you created life? Or saved a life?
These are the questions of science fiction. The good news about your question...
But it's not science fiction.
But what you're describing is many, many, many years from now.
2030, according to the guy who works for you.
Well, I will be a little bit more pessimistic.
2040.
It's a long, long time. And the reason is that as we understand the parallelism of the brain, which presumably is our consciousness, it will be many, many years before we can simulate what you're describing. What we can do...
You should talk to Ray.
I have.
Does he know you're this pessimistic on his work?
I'm not that pessimistic on his work. I'm a supporter of his work.
All right.
It doesn't mean that 2030 is the date. Have you ever encountered a product that slips?
Oh, I know. I'm still waiting for my flying car. But...
Well, we're actually working on that.
But I also know why you hired him, because I know his record. I mean, I read Age of Spiritual Machines when it first came out.
Ray is a truly brilliant innovator and futurist. Right. The reality is we've got to do stuff step by step. One of the core questions in this area is whether it'll be possible to do something called the Turing test, where you can actually determine whether a person or a computer are one and the same. You literally ask questions of the computer and the person. Many people believe that within a couple decades, we'll be able to have computers that are as smart or as dumb as humans. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, by the way, the computer wouldn't have to have a perfect memory to simulate people. So it's a more complicated question than you might imagine.
If you can, and you call them in your book, you call when you can up memory prosthetics. Explain memory prosthetics.
Again, is there some way in which we can recreate some understanding, allow you to consult it, get it into you? We don't know. These are speculation.
You guys sound like I read your book.
I know.
You're not as like, well, that's crazy talk in the book. I mean, I don't understand.
These are not current Google X research projects.
No, I know that, but you are working towards them. You see them as a possibility.
A possible path in the future.
Okay.
Right. Is this relationship of humans? But you're asking the deepest possible question.
Don't you think that's good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there's so many ways in which there are assumptions in your questions, right? Is it a perfect replica of a human? Is the thought similar? How does it work? How does it interact? We don't know.
I mean, I just know Ray, and I think he's brilliant. And I know what he's shooting for. And if he shoots for that, you should, before he says, hey, guys, you won't believe what I got in the kitchen. I got it. Before he says that, shouldn't we have some conversations on, well, what does that mean?
There will be many product reviews between now and 2030.
But should it be
Okay, technical difficulty here too, so give me a second here. I lost flash there, so hopefully we can get it back. Not have to. Okay, we got it. Cool.
A possible path in the future.
Okay.
Right. Is this relationship of humans? But you're asking the deepest possible question.
Don't you think that's good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there's so many ways in which there are assumptions in your questions, right? Is it a perfect replica of a human? Is the thought similar? How does it work? How does it interact? We don't know.
I mean, I just know Ray, and I think he's brilliant, and I know what he's shooting for, and if he shoots for that, you should, before he says, hey, guys, you won't believe what I got in the kitchen. I got it. Before he says that, shouldn't we have some conversations on, well, what does that mean?
There will be many product reviews between now and 2030.
But should it be product reviews? Here's what I'm trying to ask you. The world that you guys are projecting, hang on, hold on just a second. The world you are projecting is a wildly different and possibly dangerous world, unless we all have these conversations and say, what is life?
First place, this conversation will happen every day for the next 20 years. And it's probably more than 20 years, for sure. And the second thing is that companies like Google have all sorts of incentives to do this right. There have been a number of projects inside Google where we ultimately thought we could build it, but that it would invade people's privacy or is inappropriate use of our brand, might be a regulatory problem. It just violated our principles. We actually have a set of rules by which we operate, which we talk about, right? And even if we didn't have those rules, we'd be regulated to death if we violated them.
So let's talk about the rules then, because maybe that's a better place to start. What are the rules? What are the...
How about making the world a better place for each and every citizen?
That is so general. I could say, a lot of people could say.
And this is where the interview, you have to listen how he answers this. And, this plays back into what Luke, Jason, and Nick were saying in the interview from We Are Change. This company has a monopoly, and when it decides what's right and what's wrong, that's going to lead to censorship. And how they justify this in their mind is pretty egotistical, I believe. But I'll let you judge for yourself.
Say that.
But it is our belief.
But what does that mean?
Well, using technology to advance knowledge, to empower individuals, right, to do amazing things.
Okay. I don't know why I expected to have I expected to have, I said this morning, I will never do, I mean, not that he would ever give me one. I would never do a conversation with the president. Because I know any president, I know exactly what I'm going to get. And he's got to answer what he's got to answer. I really thought we would have a more, a more philosophical conversation.
Well, again, I think we can have, my problem is that you're describing things as fact when there's a lot of guesswork to get to there. As a philosophical matter, computers should be in the service of humans. That the information and services that we're building should service us and not the other way around. And I think ultimately that's how society will make these decisions.
Okay.
And it won't just be Google or any other technology.
Right. And I don't mean to single you guys out. You're just the big dog.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You talk about, in reading the book, I understood a little why maybe some people are now saying in Washington, and, unemployment's not so bad because you're going to have time to paint and write music. That has not computed with me at all. I'm like, since when has that been a logical thing to say about the unemployment? Then I saw something from a big investment firm last week that said if trends would continue, and they said it would not continue this way because something will break, but because the Fed is making money so cheap right now, tech people can grab all this money and invest in robotics and everything else. And if the trend line would continue before something would break, he could foresee 60% unemployment because robotics and everything else going to make so much of our life and the jobs that we do obsolete. And you talk about this a little bit in the book. Will you talk a little bit about what the job scenarios are going to be like? Because you talk about you'll have time to, I love this, deep think in the future.
One of the argument that Eric and I have, which we talk a little bit about in the book, is there's obviously a lot of frustration that people have articulated with regards to jobs disappearing. That shouldn't translate into we should therefore stop innovating.
I'm going to stop it right there. Now, these companies, especially Google, they say, oh, we want people to innovate. They talk about how, the Blaze, Glenn Beck had a little bit of money into this. They aren't going into, when we talk about how, which part of the interview I didn't play, which you can find this on YouTube. Just type in Eric Schmidt, Glenn Beck, whatever. But they don't talk about, when they speak about not showing certain things or censoring, basically admitting to having the ability to censor to prevent violence. Well, that goes back to the articles that either anti-media or anti-war have posted about Abu Ghraib. And when they pull your ads, they don't say you can't have an ad on that article, on that page or something to that extent. They just pull your ads. They pull revenue sources out of these entrepreneurs that don't follow a line that they believe you should follow. And that goes back to, we don't do evil. Our company, we make it up of people that are good people and they'll follow ethics. And, one person's morals might not be another. One person's morals say, oh, you should never show anything like that because it might upset the wrong people and they'll go nuts. And other people are like, people should go a little nuts when this stuff is taking place in the name of you. And, you're being told it's for your safety when it's not us sharing something that's already knowledge to people with more people because, over there in Iraq, Afghanistan, all these other countries, they already know what's happening to them over there better than we do. When you share this information with the U.S. public, it shows that, they're doing things that might not encourage peace between our nations. But because that might shake up the atmosphere here in America, they want to censor it. And I'm sure, of course, they'll say that, it's to prevent these people in other countries from getting mad and rising up and harming America. But they already know what's happening to them. That's why ISIS has been able to grow. And the radicals have been even able to, win over the moderates and conservatives that at one time would have had nothing to do with all of these crazy radical people, and now they're going, this is the better option than just allowing troops to be here and kicking in doors all the time. So the problem is they're being forced into a corner where they have to pick the lesser of two evils. But here in America, we have enough people that are willing to keep buying into the system and pick the lesser of the two evils. Okay. Gonna move on here. Kind of staying in the same sphere of everything. One out of Next News Network, SPLC Hate Watch targets Next News and Oath Keepers, which I don't think we should be too surprised about that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Has the Southern Poverty Law Center reached a breaking point? Well, here we are again. Gary Franchi, Next News Network. We have been mentioned and targeted by the Southern Poverty Law Center once again on their Hate Watch blog. You can see it right behind me here. But I'm in good company. Yes, Oath Keepers are mentioned. Alex Jones InfoWars is mentioned, and it's in context to what's happening at the Sugar Pine Mine. So, if you're going to go ahead and report about what's happening there, if you're going to simply talk about it, and bypass the media by getting the message to the American people about what's happening, then this group is going to target you on their Hate Watch blog. For me, it's a badge of honor. I love it. I mean, anytime these guys mention me, it's like, I crack up. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention it. I'll put a link to those guys in this description here, and you can read the whole line. They're calling us anti-government activists, or they're calling the folks there, the militia members, anti-government activists, even though they're there to support the Constitution. I don't know how you could be anti-government while supporting the Constitution at the same time. These guys just don't get it. They don't get it at all. Also, tomorrow morning, I will have Stuart Rhodes will be with me. He'll be joining me, and Mary Eckert from the Oath Keepers out there will be joining me as I sit in and guest host for Joyce Riley on the Power Hour on GCN. So if you want to get the facts about what's happening, tune in tomorrow morning. You'll hear it from the horse's mouth on the ground. We'll get their response to the Hate Watch blog. We'll talk to Stuart about being mentioned as well. Should be a great show tomorrow on the Power Hour. So I look forward to having you all tune in and, keep up the good work out there for sharing these videos and spreading the word. That's why we do it, and we have a great time.
Next News Network on YouTube, and I have the article up here, and you got to remember Southern Poverty Law Center is also one that called We Are Change, a hate group and a anti-government patriot group. Here, titled, Oath Keepers Descend Upon Oregon with Dreams of Armed Confrontation Over Mining Dispute. What began as a paper dispute over the language in a claim for an old gold mine in the hills of western Oregon has lurched into what the anti-government Patriots arriving on scene seemingly hope will be an armed confrontation with federal authorities. Most of those arriving at the scene of the dispute over the sugar mine near Tiny Merlin, Oregon, and nearby towns such as Grants Pass and Medford believe they are engaging in a stand against a tyrannical federal government and the Bureau of Land Management, the second chapter in a fight that began a year ago with the Bundy Ranch standoff. But as the mine owners now are stressing to the militia members and anti-government activists pouring into the valley after heeding the call, this is not a standoff with BLM. We are not promoting any confrontation with BLM. This is a security operation for the protection of constitutional rights, which they've claimed that from the beginning. And they're not coming out with this because there's anti-government patriots showing up. They're saying this because people like Southern Poverty Law Center keep acting like it's anti-government, so they have to keep coming out and reiterating this is not what you keep saying it is. And they go, well, now they're coming out and saying that it's not, they don't want it. No, that's a response to you guys keep claiming these are anti-government patriots looking for a armed standoff with the BLM. So there again is Southern Poverty Law Center twisting what's going on. Says here, quote, if you're on a fringe element and you're here to protest or provoke a reaction with the federal government, I don't want you here, said Joseph Rice, the security coordinator for the Josephine County chapter of the Oath Keepers in a YouTube video on the Oath Keeper site. Let me repeat that if you're here to protest and to provoke a reaction with the federal government, I do not need you. Since people arriving in Oregon are apparently ready for action and there isn't any action on the horizon other than in a courtroom or at a administrative hearing, they're taking matters into their own hands. Today they're planning a sugar pine mine support rally outside the combined offices of the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service in Medford. Organizer Kirby Jackson urged all supporters who couldn't attend to hold protests outside their local BLM office. We are calling on all miners, loggers, farmers, ranchers, and freedom lovers everywhere who are tired of government abuse to tell the BLM that the people of this country that they are sick to death of the way that they have been conducting themselves, he wrote on Facebook. Jackson is one of the ringleaders of a group at the center of the dispute, which includes the mine's co-owners Rick Barclay and George Backus, who both have expressed affinities for the Oath Keepers, constitutionalist beliefs, and the Josephine County chapter of Oath Keepers last week sent out a nationwide plea for help in protecting the mine from the BLM. Coming the same week as 1 year anniversary of the Bundy Ranch standoff, the story was widely circulated by websites as Alex Jones's InfoWars and similar conspiracy theorist website. Next News Network, sorry, I had a cough there. Whose reporter interviewed Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes about the scene in Oregon. Our goal is to make sure the miners have their day in court and due process, Rhodes said. And Oath Keepers are coming in mass to ensure that happens. Among those who have come to the mine in Arizona, militiaman Blaine Cooper, who has made a video widely seen on YouTube urging patriots to make their way to Oregon. They're calling it a security operation largely because owner Rick Barclay insists that the BLM is notorious for burning down miners' cabins in the backwoods, and he believes they have destroyed his mine if they had not called for help. Cooper was last seen leading a group of anti-Obama protesters outside the White House, including several who demanded the president be hung. So far, the mine's owners have seemed to welcome support from the anti-government movement. I'm absolutely positive the BLM has not destroyed my property because it has been protected, as have my rights, by a group of folks, Barclay said in a video posted on the Josephine County Oathkeeper site. They came at my request. I requested their presence. I still request their presence until such time as I achieve my due process. BLM employees are somewhat flabbergasted that a dispute over unfiled paperwork could somehow erupt into a situation in which weapons are now being brandished. Well, that's not exactly what happened here. It's not over unfiled paperwork. It's over what the claim that 139 or something to that extent year-old claim that has allowed them to operate the same way for that 100 and some years. And now all of a sudden BLM, which came after their rights to that claim, BLM didn't exist when they got the rights to that claim. So you forget about the grandfathered and stuff. That this unfiled paperwork is not something that they have to fulfill. For one. Two, they got a letter that says to remove everything and they would bulldoze what was left. So, not completely truthful there. From our perspective, it's been pretty much the same thing we always do. BLM spokesman Jim Whittington said, well, according to the miner, you guys are notorious for burning down backwoods miners' cabins. So, if it's same thing we always do, then that's probably why he called the Oath Keepers in. This is not a process that is new to us. We have hundreds of claims down here. No, you don't have hundreds of claims down there. Other people had hundreds of claims that you keep trying to take. It's not uncommon for us to come across operations that are not in compliance or don't have documentation. They have documentation, but you won't claim it because you want something that gives you authority. And that's what the original mine claim does not give them, and they're trying to make them go through the process of basically giving the BLM, authority over the claim, and then they can operate within whatever standards BLM decides to give them. And BLM's basically trying to deny that their claim to the property is legal for their operations. Again, so it's kind of a shock to have this blow up like this. What the Oath Keepers will do now is anyone's guess, considering that guards on the dirt road leading up to the staging area are reportedly turning away anyone without specific permission from the Oath Keepers. Sugar Pine Mine is an old claim dating its owners say to 1865. It is located on land administered by the BLM. No, it's not. They had the claim before BLM even existed. Though Barclay and his peers claim, much like Nevada rancher Clive Bundy did, that federal jurisdiction doesn't extend to their claim. Also, like Bundy, Barclay claims that his title to the mine preceded Oregon and the federal jurisdictions, and the federal officials hadn't set them proof that the BLM had attained surface rights to the mining claim, which they don't, because first you have to get him away from Barclay, which they try to do before they get the rights to it. Basically, if they made them shut down operation, do everything that the order asks, shut down operation, tear down all the buildings, whatever doesn't get torn down, they're going to demolish, then you're back to square one. You can't rebuild that and be prosperous, and they know this. Therefore, then they would just take ownership of the property. Whiting explained that the owner's complaints about non-responses to document requests were a matter of impatience. Well, no, you want them to do something, they need the proof that you have right in the first place, which you couldn't prove, so you can't send them anything, therefore they don't comply. It says here, quote, they filed a bunch of FOIAs, and we are like any government agency that's inundated with FOIAs. It's just the nature of business. We answered 2 last week, 2 this week, and another one this coming week, or this coming next week. As for the mine owners' fears that BLM would destroy their property, Willington said is just a groundless charge. The idea that we would go in on Friday and wipe everything off the claim is just not true. He said it's no basis in reality. Here, remind Hate Watch, these are public lands. No, they had claim rights to that land before you even existed, before any public, no. The road going through their claim is a public road. Even if they did have surface rights, BLM could still come in there and inspect the mining claim to make sure they were following the law. No, you have to get a warrant first. We always forget that. Well, it's a business, so BLM or OSHA, this is such a fabricated law that, and we go along with it. Law enforcement goes along with it so much that, oh, you can allow them in your building just for operating. Well, yeah, they get you to file permits and ask permission to exist. And you basically sign rights away, which this predates this. This has been in operation since they've had the claim. So it's definitely a little different. I'm not going to read the rest of that. But, so, you know, we still have this going on out there in Oregon, kind of a stalemate, which is a good thing, but it's hard to tell what's going to happen in the future. Okay. I'm going to move along here. Maybe. Okay. Now, we'll get into a little bit of foreign news here. We'll talk about, well, we got a few different things we could talk about. Let me see where I want to go. Trying to cover quite a bit of stuff today, and I've been so busy lately. I haven't been able to keep up with everything. We'll go into a little bit of Ukraine and some stuff in Yemen. So, first one we'll start off with is one from We Are Change. Why is no one talking about the political assassinations in Ukraine? And we'll go ahead and play that clip real quick and talk about that.
The mainstream media and U.S. government have been silent about the current situation in Ukraine, and that's why it's extremely important to release this video. And I'm also going to detail how Hillary Clinton is involved in creating the current despotic, draconian situation in this very key, important European country. Now, there's a website in Ukraine. that many people are speculating is funded by Western powers and is sponsored by the Ukrainian government. This website links individuals who are against the government in Kiev. Activists, journalists, politicians, anyone who threatens the current power establishment in Kiev, the current pro-Western-backed government, is put on this assassination kill list. Individuals who were put on this list have been murdered, or they had a mysterious suicide within the last few weeks. There's almost 11 individuals. Just on April 16th alone of this year, 2 prominent journalists who are critical of the pro-Western-backed regime in Kiev have been murdered. There's been a string of mysterious homicides and suicides taking place in Ukraine. There's almost 11 individuals, and one thing that they all have in common is that they pose a threat. They were all outspoken and effective critics of the current government in Ukraine. And we say pro-Western-backed Ukrainian government because we know for a fact U.S. aid and the National Endowment for Democracy used U.S. taxes to finance the revolution that overthrew the Ukrainian government from being pro-Russia to being pro-Western like it is right now. And the current government and its critics, the people who threaten the current power establishment that we put into play, are being assassinated. And there is not a mention in the mainstream media about this anywhere. When there was a political assassination in Russia, a politician, Boris Nemtsov, who was assassinated just a few weeks ago, the U.S. mainstream media had a field day. The U.S. mainstream media speculated about how Putin assassinated his critic. Barack Obama talked about how there needs to be an international criminal investigation to the death of this Russian politician. Now, I'm not saying it's not plausible or implausible. We know Putin is KGB and those things could very much happen. But the mainstream media for weeks goes on about one political assassination in Russia, but does not mention the over 11 mysterious deaths and assassinations and suicides that have been taking place with anyone who is critical of the pro-Western-backed regime in Ukraine, which shows you how the U.S. mainstream media is lockstep and barrel, not only with the military-industrial complex, but with the U.S. State Department. Now, even Ron Paul is speaking about this because we are sending troops to Ukraine. Israeli and American troops are in Ukraine right now training their military. We know that they just delivered 200 Humvees to the Ukrainian government to be used in combat. This is supposed to be non-lethal aid, but as you can see, there's gun turrets on these Humvees for a reason. Now, another critically important part that's not being covered by the mainstream media is how the U.S. government will leave its equipment when they stop training the Ukrainian military forces, which have committed horrible war crimes in eastern Ukraine. Now, who is the current power establishment in Ukraine? Who are these pro-Western-backed people? And of course, it's been documented, a lot of them are neo-Nazis, war criminals, and gangsters. And that could be a whole nother video within itself. Now, where did these neo-Nazis, these war criminals, these gangsters, these people who are pro-Western come from? Well, Hillary Clinton would know. Why would Hillary Clinton know? Well, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton made a lot of money from foreign investments, from foreign money coming into their hands. Now, the White House is not even denying how Clinton used the State Department to raise millions of dollars, and that's why she became filthy rich with her husband, Bill Clinton, being Secretary of State, being head of the State Department. But when she was receiving money from Ukrainian oligarchs who were their top contributors. Ukrainian oligarchs who wired millions of dollars to Hillary and Bill Clinton's foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. And before the coup d'etat that happened in Ukraine, Hillary Clinton took in that money from the Ukrainian oligarchs who were pro-Western and trained the new government before the revolution, before the coup d'etat, with a program under the Clinton Global Initiative, training the new political leadership of Ukraine. And this lady wants to become the next president of the United States of America. And I say, fuck Hillary Clinton. Fuck her by sharing this video and making sure people are aware not only of her abuse of power, but her initiating and putting people into power in Ukraine that are war criminals, neo-Nazis, gangsters. Fuck Hillary Clinton. Share this video. Like this video if you found it informational. All the sources are going to be in the description below. If I said anything wrong, prove me wrong.
We are Change. We are change.org, and we are Change on YouTube. Now, Ron Paul, he's, again, you hear them talk about Ukraine. I think I played something from him. And 4 days ago, he put out one, Ron Paul political murders in Kiev, U.S. troops to Ukraine. And 5 days ago, he talked, and this is from Ron Paul here.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Ron Paul Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Peace and Prosperity. Daniel, good to be with you today.
Good to be back.
Good. Wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on in a place we've spent a little bit of time already discussing because we consider it one of the most dangerous places in the world where war may be expanding. And that is back to Ukraine again. There are some new things happening there. And Justin Raimondo just recently summarized the number of people who have been killed, just this year. And it's like 11 or 12 individuals have just been killed out of clear blue. Some committed suicide. Some got in car accidents. Some just flat out got shot. But there's a connection between those four. And that has to do that they were all part of Yanukovych's administration and friends of Yanukovych. Is that just a coincidence?
Yeah, you have to wonder about it. All of these individuals were associated with what's now the opposition. And just this week, actually, just 2 days in a row, you had a member of parliament who was assassinated in front of his house. And then a leading journalist who was the editor-in-chief previously of the main now opposition newspaper who was gunned down in his front yard. And these are, they started out 5 or 6 ago, people thinking it's suspicious. Now you're up to 11 or 12 of these, and people are wondering if something's happening. The only people who don't seem to be wondering if something is happening here is the U.S. State Department and the Obama administration.
Well, our government's for democracy and spreading goodness around the world. You would think they would be, would be going in there to help out. But evidently that isn't happening. We're not trying to find out who did this murdering and killing, but obviously we haven't made things better by being on the sides of those individuals in Kiev, in Western Ukraine. And you see this going on, and I still am totally bewildered by the total inconsistency of the administration because, I keep seeing little hints of maybe we ought to back off. Maybe we ought to open up discussion with Iran. Maybe we ought to talk to the Cubans and think something making common sense. And yet they go out of their way. Just think of, what was going on in Syria, how we're going to have regime change by the same government. And, our friend Glenn Greenwald just had a recent article out. He called the Free Syrian Army a total myth, and he really blasted.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether this whole thing, someday somebody might not write about the myth of the danger of the Yanukovych and the so-called Russian-aligned group in eastern Ukraine.
Of course, you're always accused of being pro-Putin because you care about the truth here. But you know what the rest of the world does not fail to see the double standards in U.S. foreign policy. And if you remember, at the end of February, when a Russian opposition politician, just one opposition politician, who wasn't even a member of parliament, he was from a minor party, but he was killed near the Kremlin. And that same day, I don't think he was even hours later, that John Kerry was saying the Russians had better get to the bottom of this. They need to find out who did it. Dianne Feinstein suggested that maybe Putin had a hand in it, and others were pointing the finger at Putin. We still don't know exactly what happened, but it's interesting, after over a year and 11 people being killed, opposition people in Ukraine, and I did a search before we started this show, I've not seen a single word uttered by the administration. Not that they should get involved in it, but not a single word of concern that something very strange is going on here.
Well, the biggest job we have is getting the truth out. And obviously the media in this country is not giving us the truth, because most people, even though they don't want to have war, they sort of supportive. Russians are bad people and all this. It's so amazing how quickly the sentiment changed, but it is the orchestration from the media. But it isn't just this evidence that things are going badly, and we're aligned with people that are using assassination to enhance their power for many, many different reasons. But it looks like it's a lot more than that, because we've just sent some troops in there, and it could be up to 800 troops with a battalion, but not with guns. They're not going to shoot anybody, of course, but they're going to train people, along with evidence now that because of the appropriation and authorization, that our weapons may be going there as well.
And it's a highly provocative move. The 173rd Airborne, I think it is, not airborne, paratroopers have gone in, they say 300, as you say, battalion up to 800, but it's very, very unusual because there's still an ongoing civil conflict in Ukraine. So injecting foreign military into this, particularly when you have a very, very shaky ceasefire that's holding, when you take foreign military and you help train one side, it really is pouring gasoline on a fire rather than trying to ratchet it back down toward peace.
Yeah, and you know, there has to be ulterior motives, and we've read some stories about some financial connections from special politicians in this country that have investments in that area as long as the Western Ukrainians are in charge. But you know, there have been, you know, the people who throw the terms around, they say, oh, well, you know, the East, they're a bunch of newfound communists and part of the Soviet system. But the other side have been charged with being associated with some fascists. And sometimes when I look at this type of murders, you just wonder. But to me, it just makes the case for non-intervention, you know, to sort all that out, and civil strife going on, but the obsession with this and just building on lies, this cannot end well. This is going to end badly, and hopefully we can wake up enough people.
I hope we can. You know, the U.S. military has undertaken so many exercises through NATO on Russia's border. It seems to me it's just so dangerous. They're looking to provoke some sort of reaction. And do we need this 25 years after the Cold War ends?
Yeah. And, you know, folks, I'm glad you joined in, but unfortunately, I don't think they're going to see it our way soon. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be talking about this, and we'll continue to talk about it. I do know that the younger generation's waking up, and they don't like these ongoing wars. So I would say that we have to continue with this effort to try to wake the people up. But unfortunately, I don't think our militarism is going to end until our dollar goes bust, and which is always a possibility, may be coming soon. And that could be one of the blessings in disguise, is with a financial crisis where we can't afford this, that we will have to change our tune. And we have to remember the Soviet system collapsed, not because they couldn't shoot enough people and drop enough bombs. They collapsed for economic reason. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Okay, now I've heard this before too, that until we have economic collapse, the empire will continue to try to use its military, and same with the Soviets. But kind of like Russia, are we going to just see a remodeling of the same old system? That's the big question for the future. But staying on topic, things that we're not being told by the mainstream media. Not only all the assassinations going against the opposition, people in Ukraine, but here's one out of BenSwan.com. Americans don't know what the hell is happening in Yemen, says activists. Washington, D.C., hundreds of Yemeni civilians have found themselves in the crossfire of Saudi-led bombing campaign that is in its second month, while Yemeni Americans watch in desperation at the brutality taking place. The Saudis are bombing the largest cities in Yemen in an attempt to destroy gains made by Houthi rebels who are overthrowing the government of Yemen. The Saudis claim that the Houthis are a proxy force fighting on behalf of Iran, even though the Houthis are a native tribal group in Yemen. And this one coming out of RT. And the article's on BenSwan.com.
And joining me now to take this discussion further is Yemeni American and political activist Rabia Al-Thabani. Rabia, thanks for being here from New York. So what is the situation like for Yemenis living in the U.S. right now as you all are watching what is taking place?
It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's very difficult. We are living it minute to minute, hour to hour on Twitter and Facebook and the news. And it's been very traumatic for us because we're very far and we have family members out in Yemen. We have friends. We're just, it's been very, very difficult. We have friends that are stranded there, Americans, Yemeni Americans that are still stranded there and they can't get out. So it's been very, very difficult, to say the least.
Well, when you look at just the raw numbers here, and especially when you compare how U.S. media covers stories like what's been happening in Syria over the past few years to what's happening in Yemen today, it's quite stunning. 150,000 people displaced since March 26th, 750 people killed and 2,700 injured because of those Saudi airstrikes. How do you think that American media, U.S. media, is covering what is taking place there?
Unfortunately, for a very long time, the American media narrative has always been a security narrative. When it comes to Yemen, it's always been ACAP, and largely for the most part, Yemen has been ignored except for the security, when it comes to American interests. Since the Saudi airstrikes, there's been some coverage, but again, there's, as you said, those numbers are not out there. People don't know what the hell is actually happening. Excuse my language.
No, that's fine.
With all these.
Well, I was going to ask you because we're looking at these incredible pictures that were up on the screen just a minute ago, and you're right. People don't know what's going on over there. And when you look at the sheer damage, not just in terms of the human cost, which is incredibly high, but also in terms of the infrastructure cost. So people who survive are displaced. Water storage areas are destroyed. Infrastructure is being destroyed. And so for millions of people, these food shortages and water shortages are having a huge effect as well, aren't they not?
Yeah, there is a crisis, a huge humanitarian crisis that's going on, and that's largely not in the media. In fact, I hardly hear anything about that, and it's going to continue for a very long time because Yemen, to begin with, is a very poor country. And with the Saudi airstrikes and what I call the Saudi aggression, it's just made it 1,000-fold even more harder for the ordinary Yemeni just to survive on a day-to-day basis.
What's really interesting as we look at parts of the story the media is getting wrong. I had a chance to interview Chris Hedges, an investigative journalist who's covered Yemen for better part of a decade now. And one of the things he talked about is the kind of setting up this story as the U.S. versus Iran. And that's how American viewers are hearing the story. even though the Houthis are not truly an Iranian proxy force, and it's really the Saudis bombing the Houthis and bombing cities in Yemen. Is that the part of the story you think media is getting wrong? And if not, then what is?
It's very the story that's out there is oversimplified. It's this they're turning it into this sectarian kind of war within Yemen, when in fact it's actually a lot more complicated. It's a lot of power struggle that's happening in Yemen at this point. But it's really essentially an Iranian Saudi proxy war, and the victims are the ordinary Yemeni. And I think that's exactly what the American media is getting wrong and what's out there. It's not, the Houthis are Yemenis as well. They didn't migrate from Iran,
But that's not what you hear when you watch this on most American media. You don't hear that the Houthis are a tribal group that's been in Yemen. They're native to Yemen. And instead it sounds like it might as well be Hezbollah fighting the Saudis in the way the narrative is being presented. Am I incorrect in that?
No, you're right. I mean, because it fits the narrative that's all over in terms of what's happening in the Middle East, and it's in regards to what's happening with, especially U.S. and Iranian politics, if I can say. That, this is, Iran again meddling in the Arab world's, politics. And to a certain degree, I'm not saying it's not, to a certain degree it is true, but that's not it completely. And it's in fact a lot more complicated than that. And no, Houthis are Yemenis. They're Zaidi, and there's a lot of Zuyds in Yemen, and I grew up all my life like not knowing the difference. But it is very much oversimplified, and it's unfortunate. And I'm glad that you guys had me over, maybe to just clarify a little bit of that kind of.
I appreciate the clarification of that, because as you're mentioning, there are millions of people who are caught in the crossfire here. But Yemeni American and political activist Rabia Al-Thabani, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and our media just does one of the most terrible jobs covering the truth. The truth isn't interesting, and they can't please their corporate and political bosses, because they in ways get paid off. Now again, that goes back to independent and alternative media that has been exposing so much of the truth out there. Without alternative media, independent media, we would not know nearly half as much as we know now. If we had to rely on mainstream media, we would be really a nation of sheeple. If you look at how information flows in North Korea, for so much time, a lot of these people have not known anything else and only know what they're told, what they're allowed to be told. And they believe their leaders to be gods, some of them. Now, there's some of the people, the older people, that might have taught their kids, and, the truth is out there, but you don't dare talk about it with other people. You don't let our people know. We know that there's surely underground movements of some sort in North Korea, but it would have to be so secretive to keep their lives. Now, when we look at alternative media, and so many people are either getting accounts shut down, ads being pulled because of the ad carrier, the whether it be AdSense being basically the only one I know pulling ads, we have to start finding alternatives. One thing I do is I try to use affiliates, and it does not bring in the amount that you would need to really fund the operation. And even AdSense really didn't unless you had a lot of traffic. And I know when AdSense decided to pull AdSense crap on me, you're getting hits and all this, and because of articles I posted, and then it became something with your clicks or something. After, I forget how long I had it, 2 years, 3 years, and I had like $1 in my AdSense account. Your clicks are abnormal for $1 in 2 years. Really? So I even if they go, oh, which they've done this when I first applied for AdSense, they go, you have questionable material on your website. And I was like, whatever, and let it go. And all of a sudden, I was approved. Put AdSense up, have it up for 2 years, get $1.20 or something. And then abnormal clickage. What? I'm looking at my thing, I'm like, I don't have, $5 all of a sudden, or no, I don't have anything really. Keep your $1.20. I don't want to have to deal business with you, but we have to find better alternatives. Again, I try to use affiliates and partner with things. UCY has been a great broadcasting platform for many people for years now, and I was happy to come along with the team at UCY shortly after they started. And one way you can show your support for networks like UCY is go to ucy.tv, click the UCY store tab. UCY is partnered with Amazon, and they've put together their own little collection. And it's got prepping, camping gear, and radiation protection and detection gear. Great prepping. I mean, great amount of things that you can pick from, and you're getting the same great deals from Amazon. At the same time, UCY gets a little kickback to help cover operating costs. And again, this stuff doesn't usually pay operating costs, let alone fund a large operation. And we just want you to share as much as possible, because that's one of the best things you can do, is help get the information out there. Share the network with your friends. Share it on social media. That's one of the number one ways that you can help, whether it be Anti-Tyranny News, Anti-Media, or any of the other websites associated with the hosts here on ucy.tv. Just share their articles and their pages and their shows. And that right there, just spreading the word helps out. But again, check out the UCY store tab. Great gear if you're going camping, or you just need more prepping gear. You're getting the same great cost, and at the same time, UCY gets a little kickback from that. Now, there was another article on benswan.com that I wanted to cover. And this one has to do with domestic surveillance. This one is titled, Cyber Information Sharing Bill Gives Government New Surveillance Powers. On April 22nd, the Protecting Cyber Networks Act and the National Cybersecurity Protection Advancement Act were both passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. Both bills will be combined and now head to the Senate for approval, described as cybersecurity information sharing bills that would make it easier for the government to defend against cyber attacks and allow companies to more easily share intelligence with government agencies. So in reality, it's going to probably force a lot of these companies to share information. Critics say the bill are more accurately described as surveillance bills. The American Civil Liberties Union says the Protecting Cyber Networks Act, H.R. 1560, and the National Cybersecurity Protection Advancement Act, H.R. 1731, the Homeland Bill, will both work to further erode privacy and expand the ability of the government to monitor communication. Quote, the bill further facilitate companies sharing even more of our personal information with the NSA, and some even allow companies to hack back against potentially innocent users, Electronic Frontier Foundation. Specifically, the bills would create a new cybersecurity spy agency and remove existing privacy protections by adding the phrase, notwithstanding any law. Companies will be able to share information among themselves and with the government. The information does not have to be directly related to an ongoing cybersecurity investigation. The language in the bill will also protect the companies who share information from being sued. The bills do include provisions which require a company to review and redact any information that is personal or not related to a cyber threat. However, the ACLU says companies can still include information that it believes is plausibly directly related to the threat and can do so with impunity. Once the information is shared with the government, it can easily and legally be shared with an abundance of intelligence agencies. The information will automatically be shared with the military, including the NSA and the Office of Director of National Intelligence. From there, the information can be shared with federal, state, and local law enforcement. Once again, the information can be used for reasons that go beyond alleged cyber crimes. The ACLU stands with the Open Technology Institute, the Center for Democracy and Technology, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation in opposition to the bills. The organizations joined 55 rights groups in an open letter voicing strong opposition to the bills. What we shouldn't be doing, however, is passing a bill that gives even more personal information on innocent individuals to the NSA and allowing that information to be mined for purposes unrelated to protecting against hackers, American Civil Liberties Union. The Center for Democracy and Technology says that they acknowledge realistic threats posed by hackers, but warn the cybersecurity information sharing bills go well beyond authorizing necessary conduct. In fact, authorize dangerous conduct harmful to both security and privacy. We urge members to oppose both bills. What are your thoughts here? Is there any way to protect Americans' privacy? Again, benswan.com. I think that we are reaching an age that it's going to be the hackers that people will cheer for. They don't want bills like this because it's the government doing the hacking. We look at hackers, hackers, they do this and they expose this corporation or that corporation, but we forget the government is constantly hacking our lives. Constantly hacking our privacy. Whether they're directly targeting you or just mass collection, they're hacking your privacy. what makes them different? Because someone I don't know voted for them. I didn't give anybody else the right over my person, my property, to then go vote that authority to someone else. You know, there's a famous saying, you're not anti-government, your government's anti-you, and that's the truth. And, you know, if history has ever proven that, well, you could have a government that would last a real long time and always be for the rights of the people and never try to expand powers beyond just being a central body that could defend against intruding power structures that want to control. But history has always shown that they become that. And, you know, it would be actually a amazing thing to see government reverse its role, but I don't ever see that happening. You know, maybe Rand Paul get elected, maybe he'll just do something amazing, and maybe this fantasy will come true, but I doubt it. I think people do live in a fallacy, and there's a cognitive dissonance in a lot of the population that does not allow them to exit that fallacy, because it would cause them to have to live uncomfortably knowing the truth. And that's what usually immediately comes out of it when you start breaking out of the illusion, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, the fallacy. You see things and you kind of go, oh, you get bummed out, and then kind of get anxious, nervous, like what's really going on? You know, now that I know this, am I a target? Well, what you realize, though, in the long run is, no, you were a target. Everyone's a target to a point. What you have the ability to do is critically think about things and choose the best path for yourself. And you don't have to become some, you know, oath keeper. You just need to live free and be able to make your own choices. You know, one thing, you know, that's big right now is food freedom, being able to choose. People are trying to get away from genetically modified foods. And, well, you have that ability. We do have to exercise the freedoms that we have. And then, again, it's great when, you know, you get bureaucratic agencies trying to kick you off your property before ever going to court over the issue, and having groups that are willing to stand up for your right. And we should see more of that, and done in the proper way. And I think there's a big difference from what the socialists, anarchists, whatever that actually means. When Ferguson happened, the provocateurs, the ones that were really sparking the violence, that weren't part of the peaceful protesting. You had them willing to destroy innocent people's property for being mad. We'll burn the city down. What does that do for the people of the city? Compared to what the Oath Keepers have done, whether it be the Bundy Ranch or the mine, they've come out and just been that barrier between the potential for government intrusion without due process. There's ways that we can handle things, and that might not be the only way. Large amounts of peaceful people can also do things, and that's been proven throughout history. But the most important thing is live your life free. You know, we have the ability to grow heirloom vegetables still, even though there's GMOs out there. We have the ability to still have a choice in food for the most part. We do have to fight sometimes against intrusion by government. Definitely raw milk and other type of organic fruit markets or vegetable markets or just markets. So we do have our battles, but we, for the most part, have abilities that we forget to exercise to the extent we have the ability to. And I think that, most importantly, will be what shapes the future. Because the youth sees that too. And I think the better, it goes back to, be the change you want to see in the world. We have to change ourselves before we can expect the next generation to change any. And it's not changing your core beliefs, or it's changing how you act and interact. And we can get our points across a lot easier when we change that. We can't be confrontational all the time. And, it's something that it's a constant thing to work on. Definitely, a lot of us coming out of the type of mindset that we've been in for such a long time. And, I didn't always used to eat great, but, critically thinking and, deciding what would be best for my life, I've picked a different way of eating, and I do prefer non-GMO. I don't like the Franken foods. I just don't see a need for them. One place that I get my non-GMO seeds is My Patriot Supply. And I partnered with My Patriot Supply, and they have great deals. They have seed vaults. They have medicinal herb seed vaults and other herb seed vaults, full acre crisis garden seed vaults. Great deals, great selection. And I urge people to check them out. If you go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot, take you right to their website. You'll get great deals, great shipping, and great customer service. And I'm proud to say they are located here in Indiana. And Matt Redhawk, he created this company because he's seen a need in the market for this. And I've always had great dealings with them. So if you go there, you get great deal, and we get a kickback to help cover operating costs. So go check them out. That's antityrannynews.com/mypatriot. Okay, move on here. I've seen one here out of the freethoughtproject.com. Let me find it again. If I can. Okay, now I can't show you the video, but I'll read this article. Again, this is out of the Free Thought Project. And this one's titled, Graphic Video Cop Knocks Woman Unconscious as 6-year-old Daughter Watches in Horror. Round Rock, Texas. Video captured by a man in front of a Wingstop in Round Rock Tuesday afternoon shows Officer Ben Johnson slamming Vivian Keith into the ground, knocking her unconscious. Johnson was attempting to arrest Keith after responding to multiple calls about an intoxicated woman causing a disturbance. Rebecca Tomlinson, who was present in the same nail salon as Keith, described her as a little loud and disruptive. She said she was very tired, really tired, and they said maybe you should go home and get some sleep. And then she turned around and stumbled out. In the video, you can see the two talking when Johnson attempts to push the woman onto the hood of the police car when she allegedly resists. Johnson violently rips the woman backward and slams her body and head onto the concrete like a rag doll, immediately rendering her unconscious. Her 6-year-old daughter was watching the entire thing. At this point, the officer flips her onto her back to check her pulse while the 6-year-old walks over to check on her unresponsive mother. A witness, Vivian Garcia, then went to check on the woman's daughter who was calling out for her mom. It looked like she was dead, Garcia said. The little girl was screaming, "Mommy, Mommy." According to Garcia, the little girl told her she was hungry and that her mother had been drinking all day. The man who took the footage wishes to remain unidentified out of fear of retaliation, according to local ABC affiliate KVUE, but did speak with a reporter off camera. When I look back at the tape, I can see her head bounce off the concrete because when he threw her down, she wasn't able to brace herself. There were a couple of other gentlemen in the store with me, and we were saying, is she breathing? Because at first we weren't seeing her stomach rise and fall. Round Rock Police Chief Alan Banks was shown the cell phone footage of the interaction and maintains his officer did the right thing. Because she kind of pulled, and he had perfect ability to control her without doing that. So for the police chief to say, oh, he did the right thing, no. You have a level of professionalism, and that was not it. And if you think that's it, you should not be a police chief. And the level of force used was in fact necessary, he stated. The officer was very professional, was talking to her calm. He wasn't excited, he wasn't angry. It's unfortunate the fact that this lady did what appears to hit her head and was knocked unconscious. But I'll tell you, the officer did what he was supposed to do in a situation like that. No, officers should be trained to be able to hold someone. And there's a viral video now going around of 4 Swedish police officers that broke up a fight on a New York subway while they were on vacation here in the United States, and did it in a peaceful way without having to beat anybody, and defused the whole situation. And that shows right there the problem. We have police chiefs like this and law enforcement that think this is okay. You should be able to detain someone without having to be that aggressive. If you don't have that level of training, then you shouldn't be a law enforcement officer. Because you're supposed to be a peace officer, not really law enforcement. Vivian Keith was charged with DWI with a child younger than 15 and interfering with public duties. Although she was not yet been released, she has spoken with her mother, Diane Dovasola, who reports that Keith doesn't remember what happened or how she was injured. The 6-year-old's grandmother was distraught when shown the video of the incident. It hurts. I knew something had happened, but I didn't know it was that bad. She's out for a while, obviously, and her daughter, my granddaughter, saw all that. That's just too much. That's not acceptable. Officer Ben Johnson has been with Round Rock Police Department for 4 years and will continue to work while this incident is being investigated. And that's exactly why you're not going to see peace between law enforcement and the public as long as that's acceptable. You'll see in other countries, there's been YouTube videos out of police detaining people in other countries. And these people can get irate and start trying to fight the cops. The cops don't pull out a taser. They don't pull out a gun, and they detain people. There might be extreme circumstances that an officer might need to pull out the taser, and very few that they should ever have to pull out the gun. And I think other law enforcement agencies in different countries have shown that. But again, the whole idea of law enforcement that can impose, arbitrary laws with a monopoly on that force. And, this past Wednesday, played the interview that Adam Kokesh did, and he brought up the, town in Texas that got rid of the police force and went private security, and crime dropped like 60% or something. Amazing when you get rid of a monopoly that just can tax you, basically rob from you, and then incarcerate you at the same time. Why you think they low poverty usually has crime? Well, they trying to pick up scraps. A lot of these people are born in this. They don't maybe have the same privileges, whether it be white, black, Mexican, Asian, whatever, in poor neighborhoods. They don't usually have privileges that more upscale areas of town might have. And you grow up with a different mindset, too, than other people. Some people have the ability to be able to meld with all the different types of cultures, mindsets, and all that. And some of them become politicians and then act as snakes doing that same thing. We have a targeted population in the poor communities, whether it be white, black, or Hispanic, Asian, Latino, whatever. Why are they targeted? Well, one, you're going to find more of the crime rates there because people are, again, trying to fight for scraps. People are trying to make a living doing whatever they can, whether it be legal or illegal. Two, well, they're not a big tax revenue, are they? You're not getting all kinds of tax money out of the people that are on food stamps or, whatnot. They're better as prison labor. Now, we know our law enforcement, our judicial system, it's all basically a scam anymore. It's something that only because of cop watchers that a lot of this is really coming to a head. People with cell phone cameras, even the ones that aren't like actual cop watchers, but they're willing to pull out their cell phone. It's done a lot to expose this, and it's not as easy for them to hide. Now we have to be aware of others that would like to use this for their own political motives, and when they show up at places like Ferguson and other places, we need to address that and call them out. Now, I was going to share another clip, but I didn't realize how far we were into the broadcast. So I will pull up another article. And one thing that I brought up was there was the woman that was filming U.S. Marshals in L.A. And a cop walks up and rips the camera from her, fights with her, rips the camera out of her hand and smashes it. Well, here out of BenSwan.com, city in which cop smashed woman's camera has history of asset forfeiture abuse. Earlier this week, BenSwan.com brought news of a U.S. Marshal who was caught on camera on Sunday and seen in the above embedded video apparently grabbing, smashing, and kicking away a woman's camera as she filmed police who were engaging in a multi-agency crackdown on the Mongols Motorcycle Club in Southgate, California. After news of the incident broke, Scott Shackford of At Reason noticed that the city in which the incident occurred recently appeared in an article he wrote about a Drug Policy Alliance report on how a few small California cities and towns appear to be abusing a federal civil asset forfeiture program and racking up disproportionately huge quantities of revenue dollars compared to larger cities in the state. Civil asset forfeiture is a civil process which the government seizes property from someone accused of a crime, sometimes even from individuals who are never actually convicted of or charged with said crime. Shackford's analysis paints a picture of Southgate, California as a city that is purposely focusing its law enforcement strategy on tag teaming with federal agencies to conduct drug raids in an effort to obtain cash through civil asset forfeiture, Shackford wrote. Partnering with federal law enforcement allows Southgate's police to turn the police department to the Department of Justice equitable sharing program for assistance in seizing and keeping assets from these raids. Southgate, situated just south of Los Angeles, has a population of less than 100,000 people, but has collected more than $7.6 million in revenue using the federal equitable sharing fund between 2006 and 2013. They ranked sixth in the state in per capita forfeiture revenue. They receive more seized funds through the federal forfeiture system during that time frame than San Francisco, population of 800,000, so 8 times, by attaining assets through the federal program rather than the state level program. Southgate police can keep 80% of the value of the assets seized rather than 65% California's government allows. Meanwhile, between 2009 and 2012, the Southgate Police Department slashed its force down from 144 officers to just 117, while also doubling the number of employees working on asset forfeiture related efforts, meaning taxpayers are getting less and less police protection from a force that's raking in millions of additional dollars by seizing citizens' property. The Drug Policy Alliance report noted that Southgate police official said that excessive drug use in the area dictates that police dedicate an unusual amount of police to narcotics enforcement. The report also noted the fact that the Southgate Police Department violates Department of Justice policies by planning its future budgets based on how much revenue. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned here on UCY.tv for all the great broadcasts coming up next. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Skateboard, and you're listening to